Ugh, hello, friends. Sucks. It's hot in here. It's dog days. It's summer. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about today is pretty confusing. It's called function composition in JavaScript. So basically, you can think about it as an analogy of an assembly line of functions that works on one piece of data. So as a quick example, let's say that we have some data. Let's say that that's the number 1. And what we want to do is multiply that by 3, and then multiply that by 4, and then multiply that by 5. So 1 times 3 is 3, 3 times 4 is 12, 12 times 5 is 60. So we would want to write a compose function that as we put in one bit of data does 3 different steps to it. So we'll do this easy example first, and then we'll do something a little bit harder to further solidify understanding of the topic. All right, let's go. So let's just make a compose function first. So const compose equals, and right here we'll pass in, these will be 3 functions that we'll pass in for this easy example. And then const compose like that, actually. Yes, so like that. And then we'll have our data right here. And then we'll run these in such a way to where it'll be A, runs B, runs C. And C gets the data. So it will run C first, and then that will run B, and then that will run A. I'll explain as we go. So const, let's make those 3 methods. Let's go mult by 3, and then that will take in a num. And then that will simply return num times 3. And then let's copy this. Let's change this to a 4. And then let's change this to a 5. So since we have a compose function up there, we can make another, we can set the compose function equal to a variable. So let's just go const get number, and that will be equal to compose. And so since we have 3 functions that can fit into this compose, and we want to run C first, so we want to go number data times 3, data times 4, data times 5 to get our 60. So they will run in that way. We have C, B, and then A. So the way that you put these in is you would do them from left to right the way that they were there. So A would be mult by 5, then mult by 4, then mult by 3. Okay, so that's our get number. So let's go console.log get number, and we'll just run it with a 1. And this 1 is basically the data right here. So we have multiply by 3, multiply by 4, multiply by 5, and they will run here with this data, which is this 1 that's passed in. So let's save it and check it out. Come on, no syntax errors. Oh, I got a syntax error. Unexpected token. Let's take a look here. Right here. Times 5. No errors. All right, 60. So we get our 60. So basically, just to reiterate, what's happening here is it runs, it's passed in data, which is 1. 1, the C function here is multiplied by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. And then B is the multiply by 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. And then A times, or well, A would be multiplied by 5. 5 times 12 is 60, and that's how we get 60 back. Now that's a very picayune and easy example. Let's do something a little bit harder. Let's think. What's a quick algorithm we can do that takes 2 main steps? All right, I got it. Let's do the char map function, or the let's do the max character algorithm. This is a very common algorithm, so it has 2 steps. If you're passed in a string called hello world, what you want to do is count up all the characters and see which one occurs the most within the given string. Right here, looking at it, you can see that it would be L because it appears 3 times. So let's figure out a way we can do that. There are 2 steps to that. One, you have to make an object tree to keep count of the letters. Why does it keep going to tree walker? That's 3 times in a row. Then the second thing that you have to do is loop through object and return highest count, the key with the highest count. It'll make sense. So let's make our compose function. So const compose, and this one is going to only take two functions at first, a and b, and then here it's going to get some data, which will be a string, and then here in the same way we'll go a, b, and b will have data. Okay, so that's our compose function. So let's make those two functions. The first one we're going to have to do is make an object out of the string. So we'll go string to obj. That's what we'll call this function. And then that will be passed in a string. And then what do we want to do with that string? We want to let obj, so we'll make an empty object. And then, so if you're looping over a string, it's the for of syntax. So we'll go for let char of str. And then right here, we can just go obj at char is equal to obj at char plus 1 or 1. Object char is equal to object char plus 1 or 1. So what that'll do is make an object tree for us. So we'll just return obj down here, and let's make sure that this is working. We'll console.log string to obj with an str passed in, and I'll make a str right here. Hello world. Let's see if it makes it. Boom, boom. Okay, so it makes this object tree right here. It's really just an object. I don't know why I call it an object tree. So it has 1, 2, 3. You can see that L right here occurs 3 times. So now we want to make a method, or a function rather, that loops over that object and then tells us which letter occurs the most amount of times. So we'll go const, we'll call this getMax, and that's going to equal this, and it'll be passed in an object that we get from the function above, because you can see it returns an object. So we'll go let max equals 0 at first, and then we'll let result. We'll just declare it and not assign it at first. Then what we want to do is loop over the object. So that's for in instead of for of. So for let key in obj, let key in obj, and then we'll go like if obj at key is greater than max, then what we want to do is set max equal to obj at key, and we want to set result equal to just the key, and then we want to return result, right? So let's see that that works. And the way that we can call that is like this, which is basically function composition at its core. We can go get max and then just put all this in there. Slurp, blurp. And let's console log that. Let's see what we get. Actually, I'm going to console log up here the object so we can take a look at it. Object. All right, let's take a look. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So it gives us our object back because we console logged it within that function, and then it gives us L. And if you look right here, L occurs 3 times. Cool. So this is working. Now it's in 2 separate functions right now, and it's operating off the same bit of data. We can use this compose function to chain those functions together. So let's get after it. So we can go const. We can just call this one get max letter, which will be our main variable. So const get max letter equals compose with passed into it the 2 functions. So we'll go get max and then string to object. All right. And then what we can do, instead of calling all this mess down here, we can call get max letter with str passed in. Come on, no whammies. Boom, boom. Okay, cool. So it gives us the same thing. We get the L right here, and we're still console logging this object in that function from above, but everything works. So we've used our compose function to run two functions back to back. Now let's say we want to add another function. We'll call this one const add exclam for adding an exclamation point. Just something easy to show you that we can add more functions to it. And what we want this function to do is return the str that's passed in plus just an exclamation point. So we want to just add an exclamation point to it. So since we're adding a function, we would have to go to our compose function and add another function here, and then we would have to add another function here. So now that we have three functions there, we would have to add it down here. Add x. I called it xcall. Come on, man. Okay, cool. So let's see that this works. If you notice right here, we don't have an exclamation point in this object. Let's see if we get it in this one. Not that. What the hell? Okay, cool. So we get it right here. Let me see something. Did I not add an I added a 1. I want to add an exclamation point. Here we go. Boom. Okay, so you can see we did add an exclamation point, and then we still got the L down here, which is what we were looking for. So basically, the way this runs, this adds an exclamation point plus exclamation point. Then the string with the exclamation point is ran in B, which will turn it into an object. Turn into object. And then A, which is the get max, loops over the object and returns the most common character, which will be that L. And that is how we've done it. So we've taken three functions, put them in a compose function, and then just put that in a variable, and then we can just write it out like this, and the data will run through each one of these functions. So that's function composition. You can build a lot more complicated stuff like that, and it's very important to learn. It might be a little bit tricky at first, but just keep at it, and you'll learn it over time and then put yourself in a better position. All right, take it sleazy.